I'm Todd Crawford,
I'm Eric Zavinski.
and we are too cool for the comic shop.
We are also very cool men. We're going to be talking about two man's movies, Fight Club and American Psycho.
Did you say fuck
Both
club?
released. The Fuck Club. Oh no.
You watched the
You
wrong
can't
movie.
say that word in the first minute on YouTube. They'll send the police on you.
Oh no. Well, that's it for the show.
Oh, thanks guys. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next episode.
So
I
tonight,
feel like that sets the tone very nicely. I have seen American Psycho a few years ago, and I actually just watched Fight Club for the first time a couple weeks ago. So I have, one-time viewing experiences with these movies. So what's your experience with them?
I saw Fight Club. It's funny because when Fight Club came out, I don't know how popular it really was. But the people that I knew, like the adults when I was younger, who rented it from basically the Blockbuster equivalent of my hometown Video Hardware, they kind of said like it kind of sucked. Like it was all right, and then the twist happened. They said just like was dumb. And so I remember hearing that, and then I happened to catch it on TV or something one day, and I just loved it. I thought it was great, and I saw it 2 or 3 more times. I got to see it on a big screen in college, and it was probably the last time I saw it. Actually, it was freshman year of college, shockingly. But I always really liked Fight Club. I've never read the book. That's kind of a trend for both these movies. I've never read Fight Club or American Psycho. I have read Bret Easton Ellis books. Actually, Chuck Palahniuk, I think, kind of seems, in my opinion, like he's like the Dean Koontz to Bret Easton Ellis' Stephen King. No offense to Dean Koontz, but
I do not.
but
Still there? Oh,
yeah. So like, I have a lot of experience with that. American Psycho. I've basically seen clips and memes of it so much. I've only seen the movie once in full.
yeah, same here. Yeah, it's kind of like these movies are so cemented in pop culture. I knew the main Fight Club twist before watching the movie, so I watched the entire thing with that knowledge. But I was watching it with my fiance, and he didn't know the twist. So we actually had two very different viewing experiences, even though we were both watching it for the first time, technically.
So getting into Fight Club, then we'll just start off with that one. I think one of the most interesting
Yes,
things
because it
about
was the first one. It was 1999, and then American Psycho was the year after in 2000, I believe.
yeah, yeah, I got it pulled up here. American Psycho was 2000. The first thing we got to talk about is, and this is one of the things that really offends me, because Fight Club has become kind of a meme about, bro frat guys. It's an entry level film nerd thing, and I hate to say, but some things are essential for a reason. There's a reason everybody talks about Super Mario World, and similarly, there's a reason everybody likes Fight Club because it's a fucking good movie. And we owe it basically all to David Fincher as well as the cast. I mean, like I said, I don't have much interest or faith in Chuck Palahniuk as a writer. I think he's kind of gimmicky and all that, but he did come up with the concept and everything, to give him credit. But it's just immediately such a bizarre and strange and darkly funny movie, and I don't know of any other actor that could pull off the tone of the protagonist other than Edward Norton.
Right. That was what struck me the most watching the film. Overall, really, was it's not really anything like it out there. There's nothing that really replicates it and does it well in terms of the sardonic humor. Also, the concept is just kind of so otherworldly famous at this point. And that's honestly the discourse of Fight Club is honestly kind of annoying because if you like talk about the movie, then most people's like airbrained response is like, you can't talk about Fight Club. And I'm like, okay, but can we actually like talk about the movie, or are we just gonna like make the most basic joke
Well, you have two
possible?
things. Yeah, you have that, and then you have people, like I said, who just think like it's a toxic masculinity movie. And I used to point out, like in college, with like pseudo intellectuals saying, I'd be like, yeah, but Fight Club's just about toxic masculinity, and they would just
I
like poo poo it. And I'd be like, so we can have a discussion, or you just want your image macro, you just want top text, bottom text level
Right.
of discussion, and that's
I think
basically it.
there's a lot of, and I don't know, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of thoughtful actual discourse about Fight Club, at least that I can tell from the masses have seen it and adored it. But to be honest, it's a very complicated movie, and it's kind of a dissection of toxic masculinity. And I never once watching the film, and this was a complete blind, I knew the twist, but like otherwise, I didn't know what else happens in this movie. So there were a lot of surprises, and never once did I think that this film was like promoting toxic masculinity, which I think maybe some have kind of internalized that in some ways.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where it's like, everybody had a copy of the movie in college, everybody had a poster or something, so it just became synonymous with the fan base. But
Right.
the fan base kind of consists of everybody. It's like you said, there's not really much discussion about it. I think there was when it came out more. I've seen some in-depth things on it on the internet, but I think that it just
Right.
became too much of a product. It's like the Nike swoosh or something. So like,
Which is actually very ironic because the main angst of the movie is to like let go of like material obsession. But ironically, that's what happened to the movie itself.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is it's like Bohemian Rhapsody, and I say this with no disrespect to the song or the Queen, but like when I hear Bohemian Rhapsody anymore, it's basically like hearing the McDonald's jingle to me because it's so overdone. I've heard it so many times. It's not even a song; it's just a product. It's just a logo essentially, and that doesn't mean it's not a
Right.
good song, because I'm sure when it came out, critics were writing things about how it's constructed, and of course it's a very well done song. I mean, it's a good song. I do enjoy it, but it's rare that I'm able to divorce myself from the pop culture uh, image of it, so to speak. And that's how I feel about Fight Club. Like discussing it, thinking about it, seeing pictures on the internet is so different than the film itself. It's like we have two different entities, or three really: Fight Club the book, Fight Club the film, and the Fight Club that everybody recognizes from the internet.
Yeah. I feel that way as well because so I was familiar with that third one, the reputation, the recognition of it, but not the film itself because it had taken me so long to watch it. And when I finally sat down and watched it, I did have that feeling of, oh, I had some preconceptions about what I thought this movie would be like or how it was going to go. And really immediately at the start of the movie, you have Edward Norton's character so jaded with the world that he is like faking all of these illnesses and conditions so that he can like join all these therapy groups. And that premise alone is hilarious and bizarre. And I had no idea that that was in the film. So immediately I was like, okay, this movie's going to throw me for a loop, even if I know how it ends.
Yeah, and that's actually my favorite part of the movie, is the part with him just faking illnesses to get into these different like groups. I don't know what to call them, recovery groups or whatever. I just really enjoy that concept. I found it funny and interesting. I think you could have made a whole movie around that alone. But really,
Yeah, you pretty much good.
what the movie is, and this is my other favorite thing about the movie, though, is that it's really this tale of someone who essentially he has everything and nothing at once. And
Yes.
so like he has all these material possessions, but he's not fulfilled in any way. He's just jaded with life. And then he starts something, and it just gets bigger and bigger than him until eventually it kind of spirals out of control and out of his own hands.
And truly, it's fascinating because I think the twist is brilliant because it recontextualizes the movie in such a way where you realize how complex this character was. And when you think they're, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, when you think that they are separate people, you already think Norton's character is kind of complex. But just the actual sheer level to which he had dissociated himself from part of what he had done and part of his identity. And there's so much to like dissect and understand about the character at that moment. And I think like the last chunk of the movie is so fun and interesting because of that twist. It really is a brilliant twist. You know, I would I would question, what they had wanted Fight Club to be if folks like didn't like that twist, because I really think it just bolsters the movie in every way.
Yeah, I feel like the whole film kind of hangs on the twist because, of course, Tyler Durden is the superego. I mean, really, because think about this, like, imagine if Tyler Durden was just a typical antagonist, a separate real person. He'd be a
Right.
cartoon character. It'd be so silly. Brad Pitt, like, at his absolute peak, probably physically, but at least attractively, just being a total Chad the whole movie, just dunking
Yeah,
on Edward Norton the
absolutely.
whole time. It's silly.
Right. He is like that cartoon persona. So it makes sense that he's a persona that is detached from himself. And that really hits its peak when they're fighting each other in the parking garage. And like Edward Norton is like flying down the stairs, swinging across the parking lots. And then the security cameras just do not show Brad Pitt at all. It is just perfection. It's hilarious.
Exactly, and the whole film really is kind of it's kind of a, I guess, a tragic comedy, because ultimately it is about a downfall where he's trying to free himself from this corporatization of the soul, and ultimately his rebellion becomes exactly that, and he becomes just as alienated within it as he was before it was started. But yet the whole film is funny, and the whole thing is very I'm trying to think of cathartic, actually. I would say, like, if it does tap into a raw emotion, I think every satire should, where you're kind of like,
Right.
this is making fun of me, but it also gets me. And I do think that Fight Club does that very well, where it does appeal to men because even though it's criticizing them or showing a path they should not go down, it also understands the kind of the plight of the modern man as well.
Right.
So you get that feeling
It
watching.
really is that duality that drives the how interesting the film is, honestly. Because if it just stayed an unwavering line of angst for like 2.5 hours or whatever, that would get pretty boring. There'd be no arc there. So I don't know, just like seeing Edward Norton's character like realize like the fanatics he had made, and like like congratulating him, and then they're like, oh well, you said that you would say that, so we're still gonna like keep you locked up here and all that stuff. Like he becomes disillusioned with his own self, and it's just kind of like fascinating like plot development that I don't know if I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It's I mean, going back to Christopher Nolan, it almost sounds like something he would come up with in a way, where it's a time
It
thing.
really is a cerebral kind of like reflection and twist for a movie that, if you looked very superficially, is about a couple certain things, but it's got a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it does, and the thing is that makes it good, and I think this is a recurring theme with a lot of the films we've been discussing lately, is that it works on two levels. It's just pure entertainment. You don't have to think about the themes. You don't have to mull over it or anything. It's not like Tarkovsky or something. But on the
Right.
other hand, if you do want to look deeper into it, there's a lot more beneath the surface. Once again, not necessarily Tarkovsky or like the deepest thing on earth, but it has a lot of themes. It's got a lot of symbolism. It's got a lot of just visual cues and stuff like that. A lot of Easter eggs and shit you can look through. Do you
No, right.
did you see it on DVD?
Yes.
Did it have the menu? I always love this DVD menu where it's going through his in Edward Norton's apartment and tells you the value of everything in it. And it's kind of a loop with that.
Oh no, my DVD menu is not that cool. I guess I got like a later print of it, where because like they don't make cool DVD menus anymore. But that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. It was almost like a Criterion collection kind of menu I hope that's
Oh,
true,
that's
and I'm
cool.
not just remembering it wrong. But I swear to God that I remember seeing the DVD menu for it on my friend's copy that did that.
I mean, they essentially do it in the movie, so I could see them, you know, movies around that time period did like to be all wacky and like kind of like gamify their menus and stuff. And now we're too modern and sleek and boring for that anymore.
Exactly. Um, One of the interesting things that I think about with it all the time is just the structure of the Fight Club itself, and how it's at once detached and devoid and militant, but yet there's genuine compassion shown to the people in it, despite it being a group founded upon them hurting each other. Because there's a classic scene. I think the exact quote is his name was Robert Paulson, where Bitch Tits gets accidentally shot on
Right.
one of their outings, and they all mourn him. And even with Edward Norton, like at the end of the movie, when he's saying, "Let me out. I don't want to do this," and like, "You told us that you'd say that, boss." It's funny because it's all very friendly. It's almost like he's in like in rehab or something, and his family's
Right.
like, no, we're not going to give you that OxyContin.
Exactly. Well, and that's the brilliant setup is, it's not just like a gimmick. It really shows how the traditional therapy is evolved into this more primal masculine, punching each other over and over again therapy that they do. So it's almost like essentially this movie is saying like, well, self therapy, if like abused too much, will like you'll need therapy from that essentially because it's just like too much and you've really over abused it, and that's what Tyler does in the movie.
Yeah. What's interesting, being at an age where I know multiple people that like go to boxing gyms and all that. Um, and I've thought about it too, but I just don't have the commitment, time, or money wise. Um, but on one hand, I always wonder like the essentials of Fight Club. If it didn't go too far, really could be all right. If it's just people fighting each other, and it's just a club. I mean, what's wrong with that? Essentially, my issue is that the people punch back. If it was Fight Club and I just get to hit somebody, that'd probably be a lot better for me in my skill set.
Yeah, might work out better for you, but hey, they celebrate the people who get beat up as well, so you don't get kicked out, so you just have to learn how to take a punch, Todd.
Yeah, as long as I'm celebrated, I guess I could deal with it.
As long as you're celebrated for getting the shit beaten out of
When I
you.
lost fights in high school, they didn't celebrate me, so
Yeah, high school, middle school, grade school, they never celebrated.
I didn't get in fights in high school. I was like really against violence. People wanted to fight me. They probably just wanted to hurt me, but I
Right,
never would
right.
engage because I was against violence at the time.
It
It's
was
still
it
proves
wasn't
it to
even a
this
power
day.
thing. They just wanted to actually hurt you.
Yeah. I was in one in elementary school though. The only fight I was ever in, and I had some beef with some kid, and for some reason, some of my friends like were with him. Like, all right, hit him. You get the first punch. And I went to hit him, and I accidentally hit my friend in the face instead.
Oh, nice.
And ever since I've been against fights, it's probably I learned at an early age when you go to hurt someone, you wind up just hurting the ones you love.
Wow, that's really deep for third grade or something.
Yeah, it was that, and just embarrassment and emasculation, but mostly the deep thing.
Right, and that's why you love Fight Club so much. You've
Exactly.
related since you were 8 years old.
I think the one moment in it where it is just pure masculine, it's just rewarding as a male, is to see Jared Leto get the shit punched out of him.
Oh, that's very true. Like it took me a little bit in the movie to like realize like, oh yeah, that's Jared Leto. But yeah, no, that's I wish we could take Jared Leto Joker and like kind of time machine him back into that scene in the movie and it'd feel even better.
You do the face swap app.
He'd probably do it.
Yeah,
Why not?
get Ben Affleck in, and then
Oh man.
for Leto, put Leto on. The Leto should transfer over all right, I guess. So that it's funny because when I was younger, I used to watch that scene and I'd be like, I feel bad for that guy. They really messed him up and they went too hard. But if I watch it now,
Right.
I'd be like, oh yes, that one's for Joker. That one's for your weird call. That's for 30 Seconds to Mars.
Jesus.
And that is
All the things
ironically
that you've done to us in pop culture.
the overlapping theme of these movies is films in which Jared Leto is victimized.
Oh my God. Probably a long list.
Yeah.
I mean, so since Colton and I are two LGBT men, we were definitely commenting on the Chad nature of Brad Pitt in this movie quite a bit because man, he just like really is like you said already. You brought it up earlier in the podcast, so I'll just gush about it. Like man, what a specimen that he was in this late '90s period, dude.
It's pretty insane. It's kind of like it makes me understand censorship because like I think about how much better my life would be if like no girl on earth had ever seen Brad Pitt. You know?
Right, right.
If they
Yeah,
just saw
we're
like
thinking about censorship all wrong. Like we don't need to like prevent people from seeing the bad stuff. We need to like prevent them from seeing how good it can be so that we can like all try to compete.
yeah, like if instead of Brad Pitt they just saw like a big black bar over wherever he was standing in the whole movie, I feel like I would have a lot better chances on Tinder. So I kind of it
Right.
drops the
His
movie like
entire
at least
body.
one letter for me. Well,
Yeah.
commenting on that, one thing that I find interesting is the casting of Marla, um, because she kind of I forget the actress name. Oh, Helena Bonham Carter. That's it. She
Yes.
doesn't look like a typical love interest for a blockbuster movie or anything. She, especially in
Right.
this movie, and she basically looks like someone, you know, a little bit of a Hollywood eyes, but still a fairly believable person who would just be on drugs, who would be caught up in this shit. She seems like a fucked up person.
Yeah, no, the casting across the board for at least all the main roles is really good. Um, and she'd been in movies for a very long time, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
this was I really first learned her name through Harry Potter movies. So like going back, I was like, "Hey, Colton, that's Bellatrix."
Yeah, she was before all the Tim Burton stuff. She was in others. She was in a Shakespeare adaptation, and she was really good in that. I'm trying to think of which one it was.
I can see that.
I think it's. Oh, that's gonna drive me crazy. But she wasn't
She could fit
always
in
so
Macbeth.
weird. Like
Right,
she was always like a walking hot topic mannequin.
right, and then they just like kept dialing the hot topic up as the years went by.
Exactly. It was just sad because like, well, you're actually a very talented actress. Like, it's kind of like Johnny Depp actually. How like he used to be a good
Right.
actor, and then it was Jack Sparrow and he hit it huge, and then it was just different Jack Sparrows in different movies.
Yeah, no, I can't. I kind of get that vibe. It's like when an actor is so famous for doing a certain type of role, then you basically see them as that kind of character in everything that they do afterwards.
Exactly, and yeah, it's interesting because especially since it's gonna be October by the time this is out, because it's October when we're recording it. Tim Burton's my least
Yes.
favorite director, so I really don't care for a lot of the movies she's in or the roles, but um, I always feel bad that they split up and stuff. You know, it's because they were together for a very long
Right.
time and worked together, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That always kind of made me sad, even though I'm not like personally a fan of either of their work for the most part.
Right. Yeah, you can still be sad for the humanity of it. Art is different. Yeah, I mean, I've never been a huge Tim Burton guy. I mean, I've really only seen a couple of his movies. Definitely, he's got a type of creation that he makes, which maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode someday. But I don't know what else I'd talk about other than like Batman and are the Batman movies the only Tim Burton movies I've seen, Todd? Like in full? Jesus.
I I think you're better off for it personally, but that's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
I just Yeah, I think so. Well, or wait, didn't he do Alice in Wonderland, like
Yeah,
the live action one?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I've seen that,
I tried
but
watching Beetlejuice last October. Just I did this thing last October. I watched movies I didn't think I would like, but I've heard
yeah.
are great. And basically, I just gave up like a weekend because I just like I never only go halfway through movies. I always try to finish them. But I walked out of like 3 movies, just pissed.
Oof.
And Beetlejuice was one of them. Beetlejuice, Coraline, and I don't know, it was some modern horror movie. And it was just like a thing, like watching, like even Beetlejuice. I was like, I get why people like this. I'm not even saying it's necessarily a bad movie. It's just not for me.
Right. Kind of outlandish. Well, now that we're fully on off topic, do we want to rate Fight Club before moving on?
Yeah, Fight Club's a funny movie to rate because it's like, I feel like you just can't not give it a 10.
I gave it a 9 when I rated it.
No, I said you can't not give it a 10. It's a 10.
I did not give it a 10, so I broke the rules of Fight Club.
What was your rating for it again?
9.
Okay, then I give your review of Fight Club a 9 out of 10.
Fair enough.
No, like,
I don't know.
thing.
There's yeah, go ahead.
Here's my thing with giving a Fight Club a 10. I know it's stereotypical and silly, but like, there's no other movie like it. It's David Fincher firing on all cylinders. It's the cast just nailing it. The music choices, you got one of the most famous film endings of all time with "Where Is My Mind" by Pixies playing. It just embodies an era of film, and it was so influential for filmmaking, in my opinion, and just kind of like this kind of postmodern, very meta thing. It's very Scorsese-esque. It reminds me a lot of Goodfellas, actually, in strange ways. But it's just a film that just, I wouldn't change a thing about it. I can't imagine any other person in any role in the film. I couldn't imagine anybody else directing it. If I was asked to make this movie, I wouldn't even know how to begin constructing it. It's a classic. It's obvious, but it is for a reason. And I just, it's not something I throw on every day of the week, but it's just a 10 for me.
Like it's there's not a lot that I would change about it. I mean, I think sometimes how ridiculously over the top it was kind of disassociated me from like the thematics and the messages of the movie. But I guess that's kind of the point as well. I mean, there are definitely stronger parts in the movie. But overall, it's a very, very solid film. I think sometimes just the angst and the edginess might be a little bit too much for me personally, which is saying something because I'm pretty edgy. But maybe in a slightly different way, because this is a movie that is very, very cynical. And then when you're watching it as a cynical young adult, then it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm still like wrapping my mind about like the implications of the ending and a whole bunch of other things. So it's such a good discussion piece. It's honestly one of the best discussion pieces in film that I can think of that I've watched recently. But yeah, no, there's just something, and it's kind of hard to describe, that keeps me from giving it a perfect score.
Oh, I get it. I have a lot of movies like that where it's like there's nothing tangible to latch on to say necessarily, but they're just
Right.
they're just not there. It's just not a 10. It sounds like American Idol, where like someone's technically good and the judge is like, you're really good, but something's just not there. It just not that spark
Right.
necessarily.
You just didn't touch me the way I wanted you to touch me.
Yeah, I haven't seen American Idol in 10 years. I don't know if that happens, but
No, you're probably right.
speaking of American Idol, the next film is American Psycho 2, starring Mila Kunis and that old Gary Shatner, is that his name? William Shatner from Star
What the hell are
Trek.
you talking?
That's a real thing. There's a straight-to-video sequel to American Psycho 2.
What the hell are you talking about? I did not know that. Are you lying to me?
Look it up, I swear to God.
Ew. Ew.
The cover
the
was
hell?
like 90s or like early 2000s, like video store thing. Mila Kunis standing with like a scythe.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Ooh, 11% Rotten Tomatoes. Ooh, oh. Whoa. I think I have a movie to watch.
It is something.
Wait. Okay. The director's name was Morgan Freeman, and I just almost had a breakdown. It's not the Morgan Freeman we all know and love. All right.
What if it was Morgan Freeman we all know and love directing the film under a pseudonym, but the pseudonym was Morgan
Freeman. Morgan J. Freeman.
He's just not very creative. That's why the movie didn't do too well.
Oof, yeah, all of his films just doesn't sound like anybody knows about any of these. Okay, well, thanks for pointing out that a sequel exists. That's disturbing.
Yeah, so as for the original,
it's like none of the same characters either. So just like they were trying to cash in on the name of it.
Yeah, I believe so. I think it was just one of those cash grabs, which is weird because I don't know how popular American Psycho was when it released. I remember this was on, I think, HBO all the time when I was younger, and I saw the opening credits, and that was really pretty much it.
I must say, it has been like 5 years since I've seen American Psycho, and it was only once. I probably don't remember as much about this movie as I should for discussion, but there were certainly elements of it that stuck with me. Christian Bale is very good at portraying a psychopath, so that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of actors who only portray like one kind of role or get typecast, I think Christian Bale deserves a lot more credit for avoiding that somehow and having multiple roles that are really nothing like his role in like as Batman is nothing like American Psycho, and they weren't found that far off.
Christian Bale's got a lot of good roles. I remember watching Out of the Furnace a few years ago. Very different character, very different movie from anything else he had done. He gains a lot of weight or loses a lot of weight for his roles, famously. I've still not seen The Machinist or that other movie came out a few years ago that he gained a bunch of weight for, but he's got some serious versatility.
Yeah, and he even sometimes will go out, and it's really strange. He's done female roles as well, and he's got this like he grows his hair out and dyes it blonde. Have you ever seen those roles?
No, I don't even know if you're shitting me right now or not.
He was in Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Veronica Mars. Kristen Bell is his stage name when he does that.
I'm typing in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Christian Bale right now.
It's because Kristen Bell.
Oh, so you are just shitting me, you asshole. Very good. Thanks for making me look up this horrible box art.
But this is probably Christian Bale's most famous role, I would think. It's definitely the one that I see the most often through different memes.
Yeah, right. Like, I think most famous is an interesting way. I mean, you can't really get more famous than Batman, so I would argue that that's his most famous role. But this was the role that made him a landmark actor, and I think everybody still remembers that for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I guess how I see it is, he was definitely maybe the most famous Batman. I don't know. He definitely in a contender though for a very popular Batman, but he was a Batman.
I would say yes. It's not like Ben Affleck got a lot of Batman time. And then before that, what, it was Michael Keaton. And
Michael
you know,
Keaton.
if
I
you were
wonder
to
if
ask
Michael
anybody on
Keaton
the
was not more
street,
popular.
I'm pretty sure people would say Christian Bale is Batman like 8 times out of 10.
Um, but in this film, he's just so kinetic and crazy, but he's never too far off the loop. I mean, really, I mean, I don't want to discredit the director. It's one of those movies where everybody's like, "Did you know it was directed by a woman?" And it's directed by Mary Harron, and she did a really good job and everything because it's a hard tone. I mean, it's not an
Right.
easy thing to approach. I mean, similar to Fight Club, it is a fine line you have to walk to make this movie work. So I don't want to discredit her at all, or the writing in the script, or anything like that. I'm sure the book itself is very good too. I hear it's even crazier. I hear that like there's just page after page in the book that's basically, this was written before Wikipedia, that are basically just Wikipedia articles for new wave bands. I hear there's a point where he watches a TV and there's a Cheerio being interviewed on some talk show, like a piece of Cheerio cereal. I hear it's absolutely fucking nuts.
That's so weird.
So like, to take that concept and adapt into like a palatable film, um, but like
It's interesting. That
it's
sounds
just,
like Moby Dick, and they talk about whale sperm for 3 chapters in a row.
it's true. I love that shit, but so I'd probably like the book.
Definitely unique to literature, isn't it? Because it's like no one would put up with shit like that in a movie.
Yeah, you got comics. Like I say, Alan Moore gets away with it sometimes, like Watchmen and From Hell and all that. But even then, I feel like it puts people off.
Right.
Like,
Right, because that's not what they're here for. They're here to like get purely entertained, and I guess like books are just kind of allowed to, dick around more. You're sitting, you're comfortable. You've obviously some good spare time in your hands, and sometimes a book's just going to come your way and it's going to be like, all right, time to really learn about the hair products that this man puts in his hair, for instance, which I bet they go into obscene detail in the book.
well, that's pertinent information.
It is important information, and the monologuing in American Psycho goes over a lot of that information too. It's just, I really love the internal monotone corporate America stuff that they've got going on. I think a lot of people's favorite scene from American Psycho is the dick measuring contest with the business cards. That is just such an incredibly it's like you said, he's kinetic, but the even though they're just like placing their cars down, somehow that's such a kinetic scene. Like there's so much tension, but in the back of your brain, it's like all of this is bullshit. Like, come on, like it's stupid, right? But these men in this room care about it. Such this trivial thing. And I was talking with one of my coworkers this week, and we had mentioned this movie in conversation. And my coworker Jeff, he used to be in sales, pretty high dollar sales, and he was like, "Yeah, that business card scene, like that basically happens in real life." And I was like, "Wow, holy shit, that's good to know."
I could definitely see it because I'm going to break it down in two ways. First of all, what I love about that scene, and I think the reason why it's so popular and shared around, like the one I know has the business cards are just Sonic memes essentially. And the last one's just this Sonic, and it says "Gotta go fast." He starts sweating, and this out of tune Sonic, the first level theme starts playing. The Green Hill Zone theme plays like out of tune, really loudly. But what makes it work, what makes it so memeable, is that it's a standalone short film within the movie. Really, when you break it down, and you could like think about it like this: if that was on SNL,
Right.
would you bat an eyelash? You'd be like, wow, this is a really high quality SNL sketch.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. They do those like those movie style kind of like
Vignettes.
more picturesque SNL sketches where they got characters in it taking something very seriously, and then like one character is like super off the wall crazy.
Exactly. And I think what's interesting, and a good reason that I think we decided to do this in Fight Club is because it's basically about the same conflict, but it's two characters reacting very differently to it. So whereas the protagonist in Fight Club tries to escape corporatism, Um, I can't remember his fucking name in this movie. Christian Bale. He tries to he just embodies it and is trying so hard to fit within this culture, but yet he's clearly a lunatic. And that's kind of where it comes into play. It's almost like, oddly enough, if this wasn't like it is a comedy, but it's also kind of a thriller, kind of a horror movie. Very strange tone, I guess dark comedy to sum it up, but if it was a little bit lighter in tone, it would be a role like Jim Carrey would do. Really, when you break it down with the physicality and just the off the wall antics that he gets into. Like, could you see Jim Carrey doing the scene where he chops up Paul Allen with the axe?
Yeah, I could see that. I would watch that too.
Honestly, some of the stories I've heard about Jim Carrey, he's probably done that.
Yeah, who knows? He's Dr. Robotnik. Can't put anything past him.
So,
I think there's really, oh, by the way, his character's name is Patrick Bateman.
oh, that's it. Thank you.
So yeah, no, the total embodiment and acceptance of just the beauty of the part of the corporate America too is like what really struck me early on in the film, because they go into such great detail about like how he like takes care of his body and the showers and the hair products and like the facial scrubs. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's like, this is almost a chick flick. It just goes very dark.
And I'm trying to think for a second here. There's so many little things in the movie that we forget about, just little details that are great. Like, there's a scene where he's in the bathroom and someone in the other stall's like, hey, I'm trying to do drugs in here. And he's having sex and he's like, he has a mirror and he's pointing at himself like he's like a rock star at a concert in the mirror at himself fucking.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember that. Thank you for bringing that back to my mind.
And he's always trying to get that reservation, or he's at the ATM and it says, please feed me a cat. And I think he actually does. It's like that scene there is like a Cronenberg film with the ATM. There's so many little details and just little crazy things that every scene in the movie is memorable and insane in a different way. It's like a journey.
It really is. And I'm really glad we paired these two movies together, because like you do have these reflective conflicts, but just done in different ways. Both of these movies, Jared Leto gets fucked up too.
And they have a twist that's kind of the same, two sides of the same coin. Because the twist in this film is basically that you don't know if Patrick Bateman actually killed anyone or not.
The twist is that you don't know that if he killed someone.
Yeah, because at the end of the movie, there's a big part where so Paul Allen, Jared Leto's character, comes back. He was on vacation, and all this stuff was revealed to be potentially in Patrick Bateman's head.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that is coming back to me. So there's the whole possibility that he was like imagining doing all these things and kind of like crumbling internally, mentally, but not actually doing any of them.
Yeah, it's left up in the air as I recall, but that's definitely brought up later on in the film. One of the things I love about, especially having like lived in the city and having like worked in like an office environment, are the scenes whenever someone comes into his office and he's like clearly just listening to like some album doing nothing, and he immediately puts it away. The detective comes in, he's like, I'm very busy, and trying to like scramble to cover up that he's just fucking off all day collecting a paycheck. So I've seen so many people do that. So many people just like Amazon up on their work computer and they close it and like, what do you need? I don't have time.
Yeah, I think we've all been there with some of our coworkers.
I think
it's like little details like that. Yeah, it's little details like that make the movie feel very lived in. So being this such ridiculous scenario.
Yeah, and it's also an interesting thing where there's two ways to look at it. Either A, is this a film about a crazy person entering the corporate world and trying to exist in it? Or B, is it a man driven crazy by the corporate world?
Right. And like things like that are up for interpretation as well.
Because like I said, at the end of the film, that putting it up in the air whether or not he actually killed anybody. I mean, I'm not gonna take it that extreme. I don't think most people have fantasies about killing their coworkers, but we all have like that fantasy of like standing up on our desk and quitting or something. And this kind of just
Right.
takes that fantasy and dials that up to like 50.
Right. Or like saying what you think out loud to people and not really giving a shit. Where in this movie, all the characters are such determined by the way other people think of them, and they have to fit in these niches in their jobs and how they're to be viewed by society. And the whole serial killer aspect could be viewed as like a protest um, of all of that. Or you could view it as, hey, these kinds of highbrow corporate America jobs are just attracting those people who are crazy to begin with.
Exactly. And it's funny between the two films. I think that I actually think that Fight Club's like the more intellectual one, but I think that American Psycho actually is more close to what we currently see in the world, at least in my experience. It's kind of a 1984 Brave New World dynamic between
Right.
those two films, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think Fight Club has just got more layers and more stuff going on. American Psycho is kind of more for the thrill of the ride of it. Um, but like American Psycho is a little more grounded, even though it's like a serial killer kind of thriller. Which we have serial killers, so it's like it is more grounded. But it seems like both movies seem outlandish, just like in different ways.
Exactly. And it was really interesting little pocket in American film, I think, when movies like this were coming out. So we had these. The Matrix was around the same time. I think it was 1999. Fight Club, The Matrix, and American Beauty came out all in the same year. And it was just this. And I'm not an American Beauty fan, I'll say on the record. I love 6 Feet Under, made by Alan Ball, the director, but don't like American Beauty very much. But there was this weird kind of maturity with American film and cynicism that was growing and developing. And I think what happened, what probably killed it honestly, was 9/11.
Right? It was kind of halted that period of cynicism, so we needed different types of movies because yeah, in the '90s we were protesting hard. I don't think there was a big crisis, you know, in a lot of Americans' lives, like in the '90s, like we were post Cold War and post all of these problems we'd had in the 20th century. But we were before like the war on terror and all of that stuff. So I think like the '90s had like a lot of freedom and breathing room to just kind of synthesize and you know kind of make statements about things that nowadays we're making movies about more overtly political things or social issues or equal rights issues way more often, whereas in the '90s we just kind of felt comfortable having commentary in these movies on just society in general or how capitalism works or how corporate America works. And like nowadays, it's almost like those issues are like too small to really be dissected by film. But yeah, we did that a lot in the '90s, which is good that we had that period though.
Yeah, I think how we always say there's post 9/11 this and post 9/11 that. I think that this was really indicative of pre 9/11. And it's kind of, I don't know, I'm not going to speculate on what it would have been like if we didn't have 9/11, or even, I feel like that might even trivialize the tragedy of 9/11 itself, and I don't want to accidentally do that. But
Right.
it was a very interesting time for me. I think about all the time, the late 90s, one of my favorite pop culture periods for a lot of it. And also, I just think there's so much quality happening on all ends of music, movies, even comics, I think were pretty fun and exciting back then, even though it was kind of goofy, grungy comics. I still enjoy that period, maybe out of nostalgia. Cartoons, I mean, there was a lot shitting out in the 90s that was very interesting to me. I think compared to now, I think there's a lot more eloquence. I think there's a lot more artistry to a lot of it. I think now, unfortunately, the politics is basically it. Whereas before it was more like a Tootsie Pop, where you get this, you get the lollipop, and there's quite a bit there until you get to the chocolate core, which would be the political commentary. There's definitely a good balance between storytelling and themes, whereas now it's usually like, Mace Windu says Black Lives Matter in the upcoming Star Wars movie or some shit. It's just very, in my opinion, typically tasteless.
I've actually seen a lot of memes, a lot of 2020 memes that the prequels have given us, because the Star Wars is the gift that keeps on giving. So I've already seen that movie, Todd. So show it to you later.
I probably would.
But there was a lot
up on Star Wars,
right? So you're saying that movies today are a Tootsie Roll, then?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, they're just it's just a typical Tootsie Roll.
It's not the big fat rectangle Tootsie Roll. Maybe some of them are the big fat rectangle.
Yeah. If you get a good one, it's a big fat rectangle Tootsie Roll. Maybe a movie like Spike Lee's Chirac or something.
Yeah, you really got to suck on it for a long time to get all the Tootsie Juice. This is the ramblings of a madman. But yeah, I agree. The 90s had this like kind of freedom to it, just in video games, pop culture, cartoons, where it's just like everybody's just kind of experimenting, going off the rails. I think that's why there is such nostalgia for the 90s. Granted, like, there's also a lot of cringe and like just garbage pop culture in the 90s too. For me, it's really like half and half, where it's like, man, some of my favorite video games and movies are from the 90s, and then like the other half of the 90s I want to like forget about forever. It's a very weird decade of entertainment.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I think almost every decade has that. I think a lot of times we kind of pick and choose what to savor from each decade, and the 90s being the most recent old decade, pre-millennium. I think that there's a little bit more of the bad shit hanging on. But generally, I think it's a very good, fun time. I think the interesting part about the 90s is, in my opinion, that I think things just seem to be okay. When you look at a film like American Psycho, or you look at a film like Fight Club or American Beauty or The Matrix, you notice that the struggles are often internal with the characters. They're usually discontent because they have, if you're looking at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they've got the foundation established. They're like, I don't feel enough like a man, or I want to kill my coworkers because they have a nicer business card than me. I can't get this reservation at a hotel. Or Matrix. I'm not fucking Jesus, so life isn't interesting. Like, it's very interesting when you look at down. It's like people were lucky enough to care about things like individuality.
And all of those movies are essentially like little protests on like self-identity and things of that nature, and trying to figure out your role in the machine. And I also kind of contribute that mentality for these 90s movies to the over reliance on movies making everybody think like, oh, you, the viewer, you are the chosen one, you are also Neo. And the entertainment obviously has its place for that, and we all have that kind of self-insertion. But exactly. These movies just really hit on it in a different way.
And I always hate the "you're the chosen one" trope. I think it pisses me off so much because I'm the chosen one, So then putting out this message to like
Exactly.
every audience that they can be is just kind of cruel to them because they're going to be disappointed when they find out. But
That's very true that you, Todd Crawford, are in fact the chosen one.
exactly. So it's like it's
That's
really
very good.
specific that they're just putting these movies out for an audience of one, and I appreciate it, but like it's enough. I got the message.
Yeah, like you want to give the gifts to others now.
So what would you give American Psycho?
That's a great question. Let me see if I can look up my old review and see what I gave it. I mean, I probably gave it, based on memory, because again, it's been a couple of years here. Probably an 8. I don't think like American Psycho is like, perhaps as groundbreaking or anything as like Fight Club. At points, it almost feels like a popcorn comedy or dark comedy or a popcorn thriller. It's definitely well done, well written, well acted, and like you said, it's the tone is a tightrope, and they do it very well. But I still view an 8 as like a really good score, so it's like, it's probably where I'd put it.
Yeah, I think yeah, once again it's a hard one for me because it feels so hard not to give it a 10 because it's like it just is. You know what I mean? Like you don't question
Right,
like a Van Gogh painting. And that's almost how I feel about films like Fight Club and American Psycho. Like to break down American Psycho, to be like, oh well, I would have taken this scene out, or I would have done that. Like, it doesn't seem right to me. And there's classic films that I wouldn't give tens to. Once again, I mean, American
right.
Beauty, I would probably give like a 5.5 or a 6, despite having some very strong aspects. Overall, I wasn't sold on that one, and it's a very similar film in many ways. But it's just the Christian Bale's performance, the directing, the writing, every single scene, all the jokes hit. It's really hard not to give it a perfect score. Going off personal opinion or like how often I watch it, if like entertainment wise, I'd probably give it like an 8.5 or a 9, but I'd have to give it a 10 on record because it just I'd be in bad conscience if I didn't. I'd feel guilty for giving anything less, and that's not like pressure or anything. It's just kind of what my heart's telling me to do.
No, I hear that. That makes a lot of sense, and I do think it is like a revered kind of classic. It's 20 years old at this point. That should be studied and rewatched. And honestly, I'd have to rewatch it again as well. But that is what I rated it. 8 out of 10.
I guess how I feel is that
So
there's no other movie like American Psycho, and there's no movie that does what American Psycho does as well as it does.
yeah, no, I can definitely see that. It's definitely got its niche, and it fulfills it very well.
All right, so do you
I
have any
have to
final?
say,
Oops, sorry.
I do have a final thought. Here's my final thought. I looked up reviews for American Psycho 2, and the first review that came up is 1/2 star. I quote, I gave up on this movie when Mila Kunis tried to microwave a cat. Fuck this shit. Review.
That's a nice
So,
bookend.
right. I'm glad that I read that review. I don't have to watch that movie now because I basically get the whole gist of it just in that 2 sentence review.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I hope the reviewer is paid to write that one for their time and effort.
Wow, his name is also Eric, so maybe I just wrote this in a different life.
It's past life, Eric.
Oh man, everybody gives it a 1/2 star. That's awesome.
That'll have to be our next episode.
Oh yeah,
We'll do like
a
an
favorite
unnecessary
new
sequel
movie.
episode, American Psycho 2. Maybe we could do like Jaws 4 or something like that. Um,
Well, you and I just need to make the Fight Club too.
yeah, Fight Club 2. I'm shocked they didn't. I bet they will. I bet we'll get a Fight Club 2 movie at some point or reimagining. Um,
Oh God, kill me.
They did do a sequel comic. Chuck
Did
Palahniuk.
they? I mean, to be fair, there is like a lot of unexplored stuff that could maybe what if happen. I mean, the movie does kind of end on this destructive like note that is fairly ambiguous.
Oh yeah, I just hear the comic like it's I forget the protagonist's name, but whatever, Edward Norton and I just forgot Marla. They go to some like they live on a beach or something like that. And they have a home now, and they have a child. And Tyler Durden starts coming back, and eventually gets caught up in a terrorist organized cell or some shit. And I hear it's just the craziest off the wall, just random bullshit. And
Oh man.
it sounds almost interesting for just how crazy it is, but also not at all.
Right. Like it ended at a point for a reason, but I guess that's interesting that it exists.
Yep. So that'll be the next episode. Fight Club 2, the comic. American Psycho 2, the cinematic masterpiece.
Very good. Only talk about true classics here.
Well, I'm Todd Crawford.
I'm Eric Zavinski.
And we are too cool for the comic shop.